Good morning, everybody. Anthony here. It is Monday, August 18th, 2025 at about 9:45 a.m. And this morning's video is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to read a passage of scripture from the book of Joshua or Yehoshua. And the last video I told you that I was going through this book and I wanted to talk further about chapter 10. We're going to do that in another video, but I am going to read a few verses from chapter 10 of the book of Joshua, starting in actually verse 12, 13, and 14. And then I'm going to talk about some things that I have in my notes from over the weekend, and then that'll put me on a course to deliver some scripture down the road in other videos pertaining to what I'm going to talk about today. And it has a lot to do with what's going on today in the world and what people are feeling, how people are acting. A lot of that ties into what I'm going to talk about. I think it does. And so in Yehoshua chapter 10, verse 12, then Yehoshua spoke to Yah in the day when Yah gave the Amorites over to the children of Yisrael. And he said before the eyes of Yisrael, sun, stand still over Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Aelan. Verse 13, so the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, till the nation avenged itself upon their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Yashar? Thus the sun stopped in the midst of the heavens. The sun stopped in the midst of the heavens, and did not hasten to go down for an entire day. And there has been no day like that before it or after it, that Yah listened to the voice of a man. So Yah listened to Joshua, because Yah fought for Yisrael. And in that verse of scripture goes back into all the videos I did about biblical cosmology and versus the model that they teach us today, that most people are indoctrinated with, that we're spinning at thousands of miles an hour and going through this endless galaxy. And I don't have to get into all that in this video. This portion of scripture speaks very directly to exactly what happened. The sun and the moon stopped, not the earth from spinning, which means they are going around the terrain or the plane that we live on, just like the Bible teaches. And so that brings us into what I'm going to talk about this morning in my notes here, that people's perception of reality, of what's taking place right now, what's been going on specifically, or from, let's say, from the end of 2019 to now, and then before 2019, people are saying to themselves, and I've watched some videos on this, they can't explain it, but they're losing like memory, they're losing cognition, they're losing sense of time. It seems that time is moving very fast now. The days, the weeks, the months, the years, it's like we can't perceive what's happening. It's like something's happened cognitively to us. And so with that in mind, when we read scripture and we read books like the book of Revelation, and how most of us have been taught the book of Revelation, that the Apostle John got this vision from God, from Yah, okay, from Messiah, that we are taught, and most schools teach, or biblical teachings teach, that it's all yet future, most of it. It's, when John got the vision, and then we say it was thousands of years future, which the time period we're in now seems to be getting closer. So a lot of people that teach the future, millennial reign, the coming of Messiah, all that, it's yet future. In other words, it hasn't happened yet. We're looking forward to that. And then people throw in the rapture doctrine, which is a false doctrine, which I talk about. We won't get into in this video. So in the past several weeks, actually it's been over a month now, I started to look at closer the Olivet Discourse, Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21, and other verses, other passages of Scripture associated with that. And so I'm still studying that out and looking at it closer, because when you read the text of those passages of Scripture in the Gospels, you'll see that what Messiah was talking about to his disciples was something that was going to happen imminently. In other words, in a short period of time. He wasn't talking to them and saying thousands of years, 2,000 or 3,000 years future, this is what you're going to see. He was telling them what their eyes were going to see in their lifetimes in that scripture. So what implications does that have? What implications does it have in the book of Revelation when we're looking at that? What if a lot of things in the book of Revelation have already occurred, past? And then what if our timelines are off, is what I'm saying. And so a lot of people are feeling this sense of loss of time, of memory, of comprehension of what's taken place. And I think that that's part of the spiritual warfare going on, that this beast system that's really moving forward now is being fostered upon us through energies and technologies that we can't even fathom. We know about certain things that they've talked about, but who knows what they have already developed that we don't even know yet that they're using on us and testing on the populations of the world that mess with our frequencies, our sound waves, microwaves, all these things that are invisible. You can't see them, but they have an effect on our bodies, because our bodies are created a certain way. And so I want you to think about, in this video, what if the timeline is off? So you have to go back and you have to look at, of course, the scriptures and read them slowly, and go back and look at cross references in the Old Testament and the Tanakh, and start laying that groundwork down to say, what if the timeline that we've been taught about the book of Revelation is off? What if a lot of it happened? In other words, what if Messiah already came back? What if his second coming already happened? What if the millennial kingdom, the 1,000-year reign, already has taken place, and it's been covered up? Yes, covered up by these men inspired by Satan and directed by him in our day today through secret societies and all these coercive groups. And you could name them: Illuminati, Bilderberg, CFR, all these different groups, Skull and Bones. They all have one goal in common, and that's man-centered and man-directed, and God is taken off the table. Man has become God. And that is something that I think that Satan has given the power to these people to do in order to fool the world in this little season that he's in now before his total end comes. So what I'm trying to say today is, I'm looking closer at what if the timeline is off. What if the timeline of Revelation is off, and we've been taught, or we're only looking at it from a futuristic, millennial reign is coming, hasn't happened yet, second coming hasn't happened yet, versus there's a lot of evidence showing that the things that Messiah talked about and the things that happened in 70 AD when Rome destroyed Jerusalem, and that prophecy that Messiah talked about, and the desecration in the temple, already happened. The abomination of desolation that Rome committed in the temple in 70 AD, and then everything that Messiah talked to his disciples about, and he even mentioned to the high priest that the high priest would see him coming. Those who pierced him, the book of Revelation says, would see him. Those who physically pierced him. I know we could be held guilty, in our unbelief, we technically pierced him. I know that's taught. But what if literally he said those who pierced him would see him coming in the clouds, because that's what it says in the scriptures. And then if that happened, like he said it would, the cultures or the survivors of the time, they wouldn't write the history about it. In other words, if when the Red Sea parted and the Egyptians came through and they were, drowned and covered up, they wouldn't like write in their history, this is what happened to us. They would cover it up somehow. Oh no, that didn't happen, because it makes them look like they were conquered or weak, and the timeline and the histories have been rewritten. And I think that's what has been done, especially when it pertains to our cosmic, what goes on in the cosmic, like how they want us, what they want us to believe over the last hundreds of years, that we're living on this spinning ball. It's going endlessly in space and time, and there's billions of stars and planets, and now they see aliens coming from another galaxy and they're on their way. Is it all just a ploy to get us to follow their Luciferian teachings that they get from Lucifer, from Hashatan himself, in order to keep people in the dark about knowing Messiah and what happened and what he did already and where we are in timeline and what is going to happen next in the timeline? What is next? What if that whole timeline is off and what we've been looking forward to already happened? So that's what I wanted to mention today, and what people are going through now, in what's happened with the pandemic and other things that are going on in the world. It's all related, and all these leaders that are coming forward now and pushing war, and no one wants to seemingly have peace, and there's a battle for resources and certain minerals that are in the ground, and they'll go to no lengths to get them. They can manipulate maybe weather events and climate events and earthquakes and things that man can manipulate in order to bring about, what he wants in the end. And what he wants in the end is to do his Father's will, and his Father's will is Lucifer or Satan, because that's who these elite and world leaders, they all belong to a club that you've heard that we're not in. The average man and woman are not in. They're not part of that club. But many of us get hypnotized by television and printed materials and what we see on the news and what political leaders say. And they say one thing and do another, or it looks like they're helping here a small bit, but over here there's a big chunk that is still going on of a certain thing, a certain technology that's still being pushed on the people. And so what I wanted to do in this video today is get you thinking, feeling, and then acting. Go back to the scriptures, look and see. I have some video I'll put in the links that you could start watching, that people that talk about this and show biblical timelines and give scripture, and it gives another view of where we might be in the timeline, is what I'm saying. And what many people think is yet to come may have happened already, and so what's yet to come, if that timeline is correct, what's yet to come would be the New Jerusalem descending down from heaven. And so I just want you to think about that and look at the scriptures and read, of course, the discourse that Messiah had with his disciples and exactly what he said to them. It doesn't seem like what he said to them was thousands of years future. It seems like he was warning them and showing them what would happen in a generation. And from his death and resurrection, let's say 33 AD to 70 AD, that's like 40 years. That's a generation, if you will. And what he said came to pass in 70 AD, that he told them in Matthew 24, Luke 21, and Mark 13, came to pass already, and then was covered up. And then the first resurrection taking place. What kind of an impact does that have on us now, today? I think it could make the scales come off our eyes. our eyes be fully opened as to where we are, what we're to be looking for, and that we shouldn't be following this beast system, because it says Hashatan, or Satan, knows his time is short. Is this his little season that we're in, where he makes a final push? He's released from the bottomless pit. He makes a final push to overthrow God, which is his goal, to become like Yah, he said. It says in Scripture. And to make that come true with the help of his fallen angels, his demonic activity, his fake alien invasion that's really demonic and fallen angel directed, and that the whole world now is primed to think that there's aliens on other planets, and they may have created us, and they put us here. All these deceptions taking place is what I don't want you to fall into, because they're banking on our minds and our will and our love for Yah and Messiah to be tampered with, to be taken out of us somehow, for us to abandon it and then finally give in to their system, their one world directed religious system / business system, economic system, where you own nothing and you'll be happy, where you live for the climate and the Mother Earth and all this other nonsense that they push, and they take Yah out of the picture. The one true Yah and his Bane, his son, Mashiach, out of the picture. That's what I want you to think about today. Okay? Thanks for watching. Take care. Yah bless everybody. Anthony signing off.